Hey guys, how you doing? It's Tom. I just wanted to give you a heads up that something went wrong with Adam's mic during this episode. So if you listen and it sounds like it's a little choppy, that's me just cutting out unnecessary dead air and just trying to make it as fluent as possible. Hopefully, this is just a one-time thing. Thank you guys. Let's get going.
All right, welcome back to another episode. This is two guys with questionable credentials with your hosts Adam and Tom. Tom, how are you doing today?
I'm recovering. Had a little too much fun Saturday night. Been kind of a rough morning.
Well, fortunately, we are recording in the afternoon to give Tom a little bit of time to recover. So today, we're kind of taking a step back a little bit, and we're going to actually explore exactly what got us into the whole sci-fi genre story, so to speak. Whenever we're kids, we see that one thing that was on, for Tom and I, it would be movies or TV shows, and nowadays it's more streaming services and YouTube and independent creative content and stuff. But for me, I think from very early on, being a kid who grew up in the '90s, you had Saturday morning cartoons, so kind of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a good go-to for Saturday mornings. But Batman was always kind of a jumping off point for me. And that was because I remember this trip very fondly. It was when my parents and I went to Virginia Beach with a couple other families. And lo and behold, there was a Batman marathon on TV. It was, much to my regret now, the Batman TV show from the 1960s with Adam West. But that kind of got me into the character a little bit. And I think it was not long after that I actually watched the 1989 Batman with Michael Keaton. Of course, I was still a wee lad. Whenever that came out, I think I was 3. So it was a couple years after that. But that kind of really sparked my interest, in superheroes. It was, it was fun. It was goofy. As a kid, I could relate to it. As an adult, I go back and kind of shake my head at it now. But, you have to give due to Adam West and the writers and everything from the 1960s, bringing the comic books to life with the characters, the Penguin. The one funny one that you really don't see much in the cartoons or movies is, I think it was King Tut. It was a Pharaoh supervillain character. He was just a regular guy who wore Egyptian clothing and thought he was a reincarnated Pharaoh and tried to take over Gotham City and plunder the riches of society and have everyone bow down. That was kind of a fun character. Of course, you had Catwoman. You had the Penguin and the Joker and all the good characters in it, as well as the guest stars. I always loved the guest stars that would pop out as, Batman and Robin were climbing up the wall. The one when Colonel Klink from Hogan's Heroes popped his head out, that was kind of funny. That was my introduction, I guess, into kind of superheroes. Maybe not so much science fiction, but superheroes, and then kind of evolved from there. So, Tom, what got you into things?
No, I was gonna say because I think things like Marvel and DC are considered more of a science fantasy. But honestly, I'm kind of glad because when originally you were like, let's talk about what got us into sci-fi, and I'm just like, okay, I'm sure everybody wants to hear me talk about Star Wars and Star Trek again, but honestly, I had 2 favorite shows when I was a kid. There was a TV show, it was just straight up called Spider-Man. It was in 1994. It had Christopher Daniel Barnes from the Brady Bunch. I loved that show. I still go back to it sometimes. The animation still looks good, and the voice acting is questionable at times, but I never watched. I've seen episodes of the 1960s. I never really got super into it. I mean, I love the corniness of it. Like the other day, I was watching a clip when I don't know the context, but basically the commissioner was on the phone with Batman, and at the same time they're like, we should call Bruce Wayne. And so they like put the two phones next to each other, and Adam West is just going back and forth, pretending to be Bruce Wayne and Batman, and like I know like the Joker, whoever the actor is who played him,
Cesar Romero,
didn't want to shave his mustache, so they just painted over it. But there was a TV show. It was one of those kind of like Harley Quinn that started out as just a show and then moved into continuity. Batman Beyond.
Oh yes, yes.
I was always a big fan of that. The movie Return of the Joker. I don't even know how many like DVD, Blu-ray, Prime streaming. I'm pretty sure I bought it so I could watch it on my iPod one time. I don't know. I love that movie. I love that show.
It kind of shows a little bit of the generation. I mean, we're not that far apart in age. We're less than 10 years apart. But, you know, I grew up, Batman, the animated series, and Superman, the animated series, came out when I was a kid. And then Batman Beyond came out whenever you were, you know, you kind of got to that age.
Yeah. And I don't know. I used to watch. I never like got super into it, but like I used to watch Lois and Clark, The Adventures of Superman with Dean Cain. I don't know. Yeah, because like, those were like the two shows I watched as a kid. Like I would like hyper. It was like those two shows and like Yu-Gi-Oh were like the three things that like I was obsessed with as a child. So I don't. Like I said, I've watched, you know, like Star Wars and Star Trek, but like it wasn't until I was like a young adult where like I could pay attention to something other than flashy lights that I like grasped what was happening and got to truly appreciate.
Yeah, see, I grew up very, very much in the country, rural Pennsylvania, and so even more rural than here. So you know, we grew up with an antenna. So I actually, until I was a junior in high school, maybe a sophomore in high school, that we only had 4 stations. And one of them was not Fox. So I missed out on all the Wolverine, X-Men, Marvel, all the old cartoons that had come out on Fox back in the day. So, you know, I had CBS, NBC, and PBS. That was it. That was the extent of, and, you know, whenever we wanted to watch a movie or something, either you bought it or you went up to the VHS video rental place that we had in town and got that. But, you know, there's 2 sci-fi movies that I really enjoyed as a kid. One of them is kind of sci-fi. It's called The Final Countdown. It is a movie that is set in the 90s around the carrier, the USS Nimitz, nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Martin Sheen is in it. Kirk Douglas is in it, and essentially, the ship is transported back to like December 4th, 1941. So you have this American supercarrier, jet-powered, you know, F-14s in a position to actually intercept and stop the Japanese surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. Because you have the time travel element of it, and you have the dilemma of, you know, for the Star Trek crowd that follows us, you know, temporal mechanics, temporal prime directive. So, you know, they do change history a little bit, but not enough to completely alter the timeline whenever the carrier actually does return to present day. But it's just funny because I'm big into history. I'm big into naval history, so it was fun to watch. The movie did not have a lot of good reviews at the time. It's aged very well. So if anyone has not watched it, I would recommend if you have an interest in history, I would suggest that you give it a whirl. I think it's on Prime. It's on one of the streaming services because I haven't watched it that long ago. So that was kind of a sci-fi movie that really got into. The other one it's much more sci-fi is called Guyver Dark Hero. It was released in 1994. It was a sequel to another movie, Guyver. And this is all based off of, I believe, a Japanese anime. And then it was, of course, someone brought it to Hollywood and then made it into a movie. I never actually went back and watched the first one. Mark Hamill is in it. But I watched the second one, and this was probably whenever I'm going to say probably about maybe 7 or 8 years old. I had a friend up at our a camp we went up to, which had even less antenna service. I think the only station we got was PBS up there. But, I had a friend, his name was Paul, and he invited me over to his house, and he's like, hey, do you want to watch a movie? Like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm in a, our camp was a trailer without running water and, not many amenities other than just kind of hang out and stuff. But I watched this movie, and essentially, Guyver Dark Hero, or Guyver 2, it's a continuation of, it's a symbiont, essentially, that it fuses with a human and gives them a bio armor, kind of like Blue Beetle in a way. Okay. And it gives them super strength, some powers, enhanced fighting abilities, and it actually, this guy goes around. I believe I can't remember the actor's name, but the character's name is Sean Barker, and this suit gives him the ability to see, like, there's aliens called, I think they're called zonoids or something like that, where they take human form, and this suit gives him the ability to go and find them and fight them and kill them.
What was this movie called?
It's called Guyver, Dark Hero. You go throughout the movie, and of course there's antagonists that are trying to find him and kill him and get the Guyver unit back because they want to study it and use it for crime and everything. But the Zoloids, they really want this because whenever they fuse with the Guyver unit, they become very, even more powerful because, they're already advanced, life forms, even more than humans do. But, I'm not going to give any, any spoilers or anything, but it's really cool because you kind of can relate to it a little bit like Iron Man, even though Tony Stark builds the suit and everything. But it's kind of gory, even though I think it was only rated like PG-13 or something. But if you're into and you want to go back and watch like a classic 1990s sci-fi movie with aliens and a human who has fused with alien technology and is a crime fighter and everything, I would recommend it. It was kind of, in the same time frame when RoboCop came out. That really took me down the sci-fi path because it was just a type of movie I had never really watched before. So, and it was not long after that, then, of course, I got to see an Iron Man cartoon. So that got me really interested into it. And then, as I had more access to, more channels, so then I could really get into the old X-Men cartoon from the 90s. So that, if you want my origin, it was, it was 1960s Batman that got me into superheroes. You brought up Lewis and Clark Superman. I almost completely forgot about it, but yes, I watched that religiously whenever I was a kid. But then, that kind of darker sci-fi, was Guyver Dark Hero.
I was more of a probably like a preteen or teen at this point, but there were a couple of shows I watched when I was a kid, sci-fi related. There was a show. You ever see the show Falling Skies?
I've heard of it.
It was on the Sci-Fi Network, but it was what's the actor's name? Noah Weil from, I think it's The Librarian.
Oh yeah, I think he's on the Pit now.
Yes, he is.
Yes,
and I didn't stick with it, but I watched the first couple seasons. And it was really interesting, alien invasion, and I know that towards the end, like the aliens kind of like split off, and like they were like aliens that were like fighting for humanity, and aliens that weren't, and it was. And then there was another show. You ever heard of the show Fringe?
Yes, I have heard of Fringe.
I also never finished it.
Yeah, I think I watched a few episodes here and there.
It's funny I say that, and I'm like, I don't know if I really remember what it was about. I think more than anything else, I just remember the actors that were in it. It's kind of funny when you watch these I don't want to say lesser known, but less mainstream.
That's a good way of putting it.
Where you just start seeing the same sci-fi actors in everything, like Robert Picardo, who played the EMH Doctor on Star Trek Voyager, is in everything.
He was in he was in Stargate.
I remember
he's in a couple others that kind of pops up. It's funny you mentioned that. I started watching Next Generation and Voyager and not so much Deep Space Nine, but whenever I was in college. But it was still, we're still in that pre-streaming where, I'd watch, it was on, the episodes were chronological order, but they were on, believe it or not, you had to wait to 3 o'clock every day to watch Star Trek Voyager. And you couldn't skip back, and if you missed an episode, you missed the episode, unless if you stayed up and watched the rerun of it at 2 in the morning. That's the dark ages of entertainment. So, but I came into Star Trek a little bit late. Star Wars I watched as a kid. The original trilogy I watched on VHS before George Lucas went back and fixed it, air quotes right there, which, everything deserves an update, and I think you could appreciate how they were originally done, and you can appreciate how they were also remastered. Another one, I did watch both the original run of it as well as whenever it came back out, was Battlestar Galactica. Love Battlestar Galactica. The original series, I think it was in the late 70s whenever Battlestar Galactica came out. Very well done. Battlestar Galactica 1980, not so much. They find Earth, but then they throw in all kinds of oopses and what ifs and, oh, we can't do this and all kinds of stuff like that. Didn't really gain that much traction, but whenever they came out with the new Battlestar Galactica on Sci-Fi, absolutely loved it. They brought so much into that show. Just the Cylon human war. They got into that a lot deeper. The introduction of the Cylons that look like humans, and then you had the final 6. Or I think it was the final 6, towards the end of the episode. But then it also brought religion and stuff into it, and kind of sparked a little bit of a debate there. Really, really liked it. The acting in it and the writing in that show was very good.
Nice. I never saw Battlestar Galactica. I'm not super familiar with it, other than that show Robot Chicken used to
Oh.
parody it a lot.
Robot Chicken, it brought everything down to a certain level for us to all make fun of. I'm sorry to interrupt again, but my favorite robot chicken sketch is the Emperor going up the escalator and all the stormtroopers coming down. Stormtrooper, my lord. Stormtrooper, my lord.
No, not to go on a Robot Chicken tangent, but it's one of my favorites. I watch. Also, Star Wars. When Vader brings Luke in front of the Emperor, and like he's explaining his plot, and he's like, he says he was like your overconfidence is your downfall. Your faith in your friend is yours. Faith in your mama. What? And then Luke and the Emperor have a yo mama fight in front of like Vader's keeping score, like they're trash talking each other. It's so dumb, but it's such a good show. I don't know if it's still on, but
I don't know if it is or not.
I guess real quick, one show I wish I had gotten into when it was on. I didn't get into it till years later. I love Firefly. I don't know if you ever saw Firefly.
I've heard you talk about it before. I'm sorry, I have not gone back and actually watched it, but I realize that now that it does have a pretty strong cult following.
The thing I love most about it is that it kind of feels silly to call it sci-fi, because there are sci-fi elements, but in reality, it's just a Western in space. Like, it's when you watch it, it's just the feeling you get. Yeah, I don't know. I went through a phase where I finally got into it. Like, I saw it was on Netflix and it was leaving Netflix, so I forced myself to binge it. Because that was, at least to me, that was one of those shows where like the first episode or two were kind of hard to watch. Like, you kind of had to because they're like setting up so much stuff and characters, but then like there are some great. I mean, Nathan Fillion is fantastic. There's so many. Marina Baccarin. Hold on, I got a picture. You probably recognize her most from. She was Deadpool's girlfriend.
Oh, okay, yep.
Who aged very well, but it's just all around like such a good show, and like they got canceled, then they made a movie, and then it kind of just went dark, and up until recently, when I guess the original cast, or at least the original cast that's still alive, is coming back for a I guess an animated series. So I don't know. Hopefully, I don't know how far along that is. They posted a video where they were talking about how they were trying to find a network that would do it. Like, apparently somebody, I don't know if it's the actors, but like they have scripts written and they have like an animation design in mind. They just need to produce it. And yeah, I don't know. I feel bad. I feel like I'm really slacking this time around. I'm very scatterbrained. Maybe I'm still more hungover than I thought. But
that should be entertaining to our listeners then. Which, by the way, I just want to say, anyone who is this is episode 6. Anyone who's come on to the podcast and listen to us ramble and just share our shared knowledge or lack thereof of certain topics that we've discussed. Thank you very much for coming on board with us. Hope you stick with us as we continue to go down this journey. We have some, a couple episodes that we have planned coming up. We're not going to do very much deep dives, but just kind of, we're going to get back to certain single topic episodes. I think we have a DC episode coming up at some point and a Marvel episode coming up.
And hopefully, I'm dying to talk about Spider Noir.
Yes.
It's consumed my whole being. I watched. I got to watch it at work, and I've just been itching. Haley hasn't watched it. My dad hasn't watched it. You haven't watched it. The only person I know who's watched it is the nurse I work with, but she only half watches. She's one of those where like something crazy happens and she goes, "What happened?" Or like an episode ends and then she's like, "Okay, so tell me what happened." And I'm like, "No, we just watched it." Sorry, tangent. But
No, I have promised you I will watch it. We will do a review on Spider-Noir at some point in the near future. Just need to give me a couple weeks to the Starz series Outlander, which I have been watching. I am on season 5 of they just released season 8, the final season. So I'm trying to catch up on that right now, so that has consumed me. So as soon as I am done with that, I will come back around. So looks like we're coming down to the end. I think I enjoyed this episode, just sharing a little bit of my origins and getting into not only sci-fi but specific superheroes, and I will spoiler alert, the first superhero that you usually do watch is the one that you kind of latch on to for all of time for the most part, and mine is definitely Batman, and we're going to be talking more about that coming up. I have a sneaking suspicion that Spider-Man and anyone in the Spider-Man universe is near and dear to your heart. So, Tom, do you have anything else?
I just wanted to add on to what you said, like, anybody who takes the time to listen, thank you. Our Facebook page the other day that we have over 50 downloads officially. And it's funny, I know this is only episode 6, but we've gone a lot farther than I thought we were going to get. I was a little worried that like we would get just because I'm so bad at just dropping things, but we got like 2 episodes in and I'd be like, I would lose steam. Or
we are getting ready to start our prequel trilogy, and
like I've had people come up to me that and talk about how they like it, like they're listening to it. Actually, a good buddy of mine, Wes, keeps sending me messages about, hey, I like that. I really liked how you guys did this, and but yeah, just thank you guys. So, I mean, I guess if we're wrapping up here, geez, okay.
So if anyone wants to get a hold of us, how can they do that, Tom?
Oh God, thank you. Apparently I need prompting. All right, so if you want to get a hold of us, we're on Facebook as 2 Guys Questionable Credentials. We have an email, 2guysnocreds@gmail.com. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and Amazon as 2 Guys Questionable Credentials. And I think that about covers it. And we're on YouTube, if I didn't say that already. But
all right, well, thank you very much for listening, and
Jesus Christ.
We might have to do some editing on the end of this, but I believe, Tom, it's please do not.
I don't know. I don't know if I'll leave this in, but no, I actually made like an actual outro. For it. So gotcha. Yeah, if we keep it on the off chance we don't keep any of this in, thank you guys and goodbye. All right, that's the show. Thanks for hanging out with us for another episode of 2 Guys Questionable Credentials. If you laughed, learned something, or are now somehow more confused than when you started, then we've done our job. Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and tell a friend or an enemy. We're not picky. And remember, everything discussed here is just conversation, speculation, and 2 people confidently wandering through topics they may or may not fully understand. Please take none of this as legal, medical, or emotional advice. We'll see you next time.